Numbers. Numbers 1, the census. In 1489 BC, at the camp at Mount Sinai, on the second month of the second year after leaving Egypt, God asked for a census of men over 20 years old who could go to war. This was preparation for entering Canaan. The leader of each tribe helped Moses in counting the men, and each was listed by name in verses 5 to 16. Each tribe was counted except the Levites, exempt because they cared for the tabernacle. The total number of fighting men in the 12 tribes was 603,550. The Levites were told that whenever the tabernacle is moved, they are to dismantle it and set it up at the next campsite. The tabernacle was to be in the center of the camp, and the Levites' tents were to encircle the tabernacle, and the tents of the other tribes encircle them. Numbers 2, arrangement of tribal camps. God told Moses and Aaron where to place the tents of each tribe relative to the tabernacle, which would be located in the middle of the camp. Each tribe was given a location relative to the tabernacle. They were to display their banners so their locations would always be the same, whether north, east, south, or west of the tabernacle. Numbers 3, the Levites. When the Israelites stopped to camp, they were to set up camp according to the following. The Levites were not included in the census of fighting men because they were set aside to take care of the tabernacle, and they were to camp close and circled around the tabernacle. The Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun tribes were to camp on the east side. Ephraim, Manasseh, and Benjamin tribes were to camp on the west side. On the south side, the Reuben, Simeon, and Gad tribes camped, and on the north side, the tribes of Dan, Asher, and Naphtali. Since the Levites were the holy tribe and not subject to be military men, they are not listed as one of the 12 tribes. God set them aside, even though they were a tribe. So there were really 13 tribes of Israel, and there were a total of 603,550 fighting men who were 20 years old or more and still able to serve. God had allowed the firstborn males of the Israelites to live during the last plague against Pharaoh, the Passover. There were 2,273 firstborn male Israelites saved by painting the doorposts with the lamb's blood. In return, God wanted to assign 2,273 Israelites as special priests to help keep the general population holy and righteous and to take care of the tabernacle. The Levite tribe was made up of 22,000 men, so God selected them to serve as priests. He required a gift from all the Israelites to make up for the additional 273 firstborn men saved. God placed Aaron and his sons, Eleazar and Ithamar, as priests for the tabernacle. His sons Nadab and Abihu had been killed when they made an offering with an unauthorized fire in the presence of God. God took the Levite men in exchange for the firstborn that he had saved during the Passover. So there were 22,273 firstborn males back in Egypt and 22,000 Levite men to exchange, so they took up a collection for 5 shekels per man for the 273 extra firstborns. The money was given to Aaron for use in the service of the tabernacle. The Levites were divided into 3 family groups: the Gershonites, the Kohathites, and the Merarites. The Gershonites handled the tabernacle, the tents, the curtains, ropes, and stakes. The Kohathites were to handle the ark, table, lampstand, altars, articles of the sanctuary, and the curtain that separates the Holy of Holies. The Merarites oversaw the posts, bases, and crossbars of the tabernacle and the surrounding courtyard. Numbers 4. This chapter gives the responsibilities of the 3 Levite groups. All men between 30 and 50 years old in the 3 groups were required to transport the tabernacle. When it was time to break camp, Aaron and his sons were to cover the holy items with cloth and leather coverings. The Kohathites, 2,750 men, were responsible for transporting sacred items such as the ark, altar, tables, etc. They were not to look at or touch the items unless they were covered. Anyone who touched the items would die. The Gershonites, 2,630 men, were charged with transporting all the hangings, curtains, and other materials for the tabernacle. The Merarites, 3,200, were responsible for the tabernacle walls, poles, and all the items supporting the structure. All told, 8,580 men took care of transporting the tabernacle. Numbers 5, purity of the camp. God told Moses that if any Israelite had a disease like leprosy, or if they were unclean spiritually, they were to be placed outside the camp so the disease would not spread. Restitution for wrongs. If a man sinned against a neighbor, he was to confess and pay restitution plus 1/5 to his neighbor or the priest if the neighbor was no longer alive. The test for an unfaithful wife. If a man thinks his wife committed adultery but has no proof, he is to bring her to the priest along with an offering of barley flour. The priest was to mix holy water and dust from the tabernacle floor for the wife to drink. If she were guilty, she would get sick, have significant pain, her womb would swell, and her thigh would fall away. She would be blessed and able to conceive children if she were innocent. Number 6, the Nazirite. God told Moses to tell the Israelites that if anyone wanted to dedicate himself to God and make a vow of a Nazirite, a voluntary dedication to God, he must not eat or drink of grapes as long as the vow continues. He must not cut his hair and must stay away from dead bodies. If a member of his family dies and he defies his vow, he must shave his head and bring special sin offerings to the priests. When the vow time was completed, he must shave again and burn the hair on the altar along with other offerings called the wave offering. After this was finished, he could drink wine and eat grapes again. The priestly blessing. God told Aaron to bless the people by saying, "The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace." Number 7, offerings at the dedication of the tabernacle. When the tabernacle was completed and Moses had anointed all that had been made for the tabernacle, all of the chiefs of the 12 Israelite families brought an offering of 6 wagons and 12 oxen. 2 wagons and 4 oxen were given to the Gershon family, and 4 wagons and 8 oxen were given to the Merari family. The Kohath family did not need wagons because they would carry the holy items by hand. Each day, one of the 12 chiefs of the tribes brought gift offerings for the bronze altar. This chapter from verses 12 to 88 lists the offerings each leader of each tribe brought for the dedication. After 12 days, the altar was anointed, and Moses went into the tabernacle and spoke with God. God's voice came from the mercy seat on the ark between the 2 cherubim. Numbers 8, setting up the lamps. God told Moses to have Aaron light the 7 lamps so they would shine on the lampstands, cleanse the Levites, and prepare them to be offered to the Lord. The setting apart the Levites. As you recall, God passed over the firstborn Israelites in Egypt, and his payment was to be the Levites to provide for the tabernacle. The Israelites were to provide burnt offerings, sin offerings, and grain offerings for the atonement of the Levites. Aaron oversaw the Levites who would start serving the tabernacle when they became 25 years old. They were to retire when they became 50. Numbers 9. The Passover. God told Moses that he was to tell the Israelites to celebrate Passover as they had 1 year ago when they left Egypt. So the feast was observed on the 14th day of the year's first month. Some people were unclean because of a funeral or were sick and could not observe the Passover. God told Moses to have a make-up Passover in the 2nd month. Anyone who did not observe the Passover would be cut off from the people. The cloud over the tabernacle. God's pillar of cloud that led the Israelites out of Egypt now rests over the tabernacle by day and the pillar of fire by night. When the pillar moved, the people broke camp and followed it. When it stopped, they set up camp. Numbers 10, the Silver Trumpets. On the 20th day of the second month of the second year, the Israelites left Mount Sinai, the mountain of God, and headed out to the wilderness of Paran. God told Moses to make 2 silver trumpets to call the people to gather at the tabernacle. If only one trumpet was blown, only the chiefs of the tribes would come. If both trumpets were blown, all the Israelites were to assemble. The trumpets would be used as a signal to break camp for an alarm to go to war, and used at the festivals. The Israelites leave Sinai. Each tribe set out in order as Moses instructed. The Levites led with the tabernacle and followed God's pillar for the 3-day journey to the next camp. Jobab, Moses' brother-in-law, was with Moses at Mount Sinai. Moses asked him to continue with them on their journey to Canaan since he knew the land and could help them find good campsites. Numbers 11, Fire from the Lord. The Israelites started complaining again about what they had to eat. They were tired of the manna and they wanted flesh to eat. This upset God, and he sent fire to consume the outer portions of the camp. Moses prayed for the people but told God the burden was too significant for him to care for all the complaining people. God told him to call the 70 elders of the people to the tabernacle, and he would give them his spirit that would help them to share the burden and to prophesy. 2 elders who could not come to the tabernacle also received the Spirit. Quail from the Lord. God decided to have a wind bring quail to give the people flesh to eat. While the people ate the quail, God struck down the complainers with a plague. The place where they camped was named Kibroth Hatava, because that is where they buried the people who complained. Numbers 12. Miriam and Aaron opposed Moses. Aaron and his sister Miriam complained that Moses had married an Ethiopian woman. This made God angry, so he called Moses, Miriam, and Aaron to the tabernacle. God told them that Moses was close to him, and he talks to him face to face. Because they were complaining, God gave Miriam leprosy. Moses begged God to heal her, and God said that he would after she had been cast out of the camp for 7 days. They stayed there at Hazeroth for 7 days, then Miriam was healed, and they moved on into the wilderness of Paran. Numbers 13, Exploring Canaan. God told Moses to have each of the 12 tribes provide a chief representative to go into the promised land of Canaan as spies to determine if it was a good land and what they would be facing when they invaded. The men of each tribe are listed by name in this chapter. Moses named Hoshea, son of Nun, Joshua. The 12 men went out to spy on the land and returned after 40 days to report on the exploration. They brought back a single cluster of grapes that was so heavy it took 2 men with a pole to carry it. They reported that it was a land of milk and honey, as God had told Abraham. They were concerned, however, that it would not be possible to take the land because the men were giants and the cities were walled and well fortified. They told the Israelites that they even saw Nephilim in the land, and they were so large that the spies felt like grasshoppers. Only Caleb of the tribe of Judah and Joshua said that they would be able to take the land. Numbers 14, the people rebel. When the people heard the spies' report, they complained about Moses and Aaron and wanted to elect a leader to take them back to Egypt because they were sure that the Canaanites would kill them when they entered the promised land. Caleb and Joshua tried to convince the people that God would protect them, that they should think of all he had done to help them, and that they should trust and have faith in him. They started to stone Caleb and Joshua, so God came down to the tabernacle and threatened to destroy all the people with a plague. Again, Moses begged God to spare the lives of the people. God then decided not to destroy the Israelites, but that all the people 20 years old and older would not enter the promised land and would wander in the wilderness 40 years until they died. He did kill the 10 chiefs who had put fear in the people. All the people under 20, along with Caleb and Joshua, would be allowed to go into Canaan. Then some people realized they had been wrong and decided to go to Canaan. God had warned them that he would not protect them. The Canaanites quickly killed them. God told the Israelites to return to the wilderness toward the Red Sea. Now is a good time to answer the question of why a loving God can be so angry that he would kill his chosen people. First of all, he had created the Israelites through Abraham and Sarah to be set aside as a righteous and God-fearing people. He had taken them out of bondage in Egypt. He had fed all 2 million of them during the Exodus. He brought quail and manna. He even protected their clothes and shoes, and they showed no wear during the 40 years of wandering in the wilderness. Deuteronomy 8:4 and 29:5. Rather than show appreciation, they had complained constantly, worshipped a golden calf, and became a sinful and unrighteous people. God had promised them a land of milk and honey, that he would protect them through all the battles with their enemies, and they would be a great nation with much wealth. He even came down to travel with them and to lead them, guide them, and protect them. God had warned, however, that his wrath must not be tested, and he gave them laws to follow, so they have no excuse. Even though he showed them his great abilities through the plagues of Pharaoh, getting water out of a rock, etc., yet they were afraid that he could not protect them from the Canaanites. God's wrath, his grace, and his blessings for his unrepentant people is a foreshadowing of the way we will be treated in the end times. If we follow his laws, we will receive his blessings and grace. If we don't follow his laws, we can expect the lake of fire. So here we see the whole purpose of the Bible. God wanted to show the true nature of men given free will. He wanted to show that men's hearts select sin over love, and that it is obvious at any time in history, from the beginning of the world to the end of time. He showed through his wrath that the wages of sin is death. His wrath will grow even greater in the end times, but his grace is always open to a repentant heart. Through his Son, Jesus Christ, who died to save us all from our sins, all we have to provide is faith and repentance. As it is written, "What no eyes have seen, what no ears have heard, and what no human mind has conceived, the things God has prepared for those who love him." 1 Corinthians 2:9. Numbers 15, Offerings. This chapter reminds those going into the promised land of the offerings they will make to the Lord. It also covers the necessary sacrifices for unintentional sins. If a man willfully disobeyed God's laws, he was to be cast out of the tribe. The Sabbath breaker put to death. A man was caught picking up sticks on the Sabbath, and Moses asked God what to do with the man. God told Moses to have him stoned to death. God told Moses to have the people add tassels with blue cords to their garments to remind them of his laws. Numbers 16, Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. There was a rebellion against Moses and Aaron. A Levite named Korah led the uprising along with Dathan and Abiram, who were Reubenites, and 250 chiefs of the Israelites. They accused Moses and Aaron of trying to be superior, leading them out of Egypt to die in the wilderness. Moses told them to bring their censers, vessels used to bring incense offerings to the tabernacle, with burning coals and incense, and bring their complaints to the tabernacle, and that God would decide who should lead the people. When they all met at the tabernacle, the vast majority of Israelites who were sympathetic to the cause of Quran came along. God told Moses to stand back from all the people because he had sent a plague to destroy them. Aaron ran into the crowd of people and put on incense to atone for the people. Again, Moses prayed to God not to kill all the people because of what Quran had done, so God again agreed to stop the plague and only punish the rebels. Moses told all the people to stand away from Canaan, Dathan, and Abiram and their tents. He also told them that if these evil men and their families are not punished, they would know that God had not sent him. But if the Lord causes the earth to swallow them, they will see they are evil and have treated the Lord with contempt. The ground opened, swallowed, and closed over the 3 men, their families, and all their tents. God sent fire to burn up the 250 chiefs who had joined Canaan. God told Moses to have Eleazar gather the bronze censers, hammer them flat, and clad the altar with them. This would remind the Israelites that only Aaron and his descendants are to burn incense at the altar. The next day, the people again came against Moses and Aaron. This time, God told Moses and Aaron to stand back because he had sent a plague against the people. Moses told Aaron to get his censer and burn incense as atonement for the people. Aaron ran into the crowd with the incense, and God stopped the plague. The plague killed 14,700 Israelites before God stopped it. By the way, before we continue, if you would like this video to be a witness to more people, please take the time to like and subscribe. YouTube promotes the videos based on the number of likes and subscriptions. You can also leave a comment if you like. We read and respond to all comments, and we greatly appreciate your input. If you would like to be a witness to others, please use the share button below to pass on this video to friends or family members. Number 17, the budding of Aaron's staff. God told Moses to have each of the 12 tribes engrave a wooden staff with their name, and he would stop the constant grumbling against him. Moses brought the staffs to the tabernacle and left them there overnight. The rod that sprouts will be the leader of the people. Aaron's rod sprouted, grew blooms, and produced almonds. Moses showed the miracle to the people. They realized their sin and were afraid of God. God told Moses to place Aaron's rod in the tabernacle before the ark as a reminder that God favors Aaron. Numbers 18, duties of priests and Levites. In this chapter, God blesses Aaron and the Levite tribe and ordains Aaron and his sons as priests. They were reminded again of their duty to take care of the tabernacle and all the holy items, and they were to protect it from inside and out to keep unauthorized people away by penalty of death. God advised them that a portion of the offerings was a gift to them, and they could eat the first fruit and meat offerings, wine offerings, etc. They were to have the firstborn offerings of 5 silver shekels. The Levites would not receive land, but would live by the offerings to God. They were to give a tithe to Aaron. Numbers 19, the water of cleansing. God told Moses to have the Israelites offer up a perfect red heifer that had never been under a yoke, and to give it to Eleazar, Aaron's son, to kill it outside the camp. Eleazar was to sprinkle the blood 7 times in front of the tabernacle. The heifer was to be burnt, and cedar wood, hyssop, and scarlet were to be burnt with the heifer. The ashes were kept for mixing with water to make a purification for sin. Anyone who touches a dead body must be cleansed with water on the 3rd day, and he will be clean on the 7th day. Anyone who goes into a tent containing a body or touches a grave site must be cleansed with the water of cleansing. Modern-day Jews are now raising red heifers for the cleansing process for the Temple Mount, and the builders of the temple they are planning. Numbers 20, water from the rock. The Israelites moved on to the Zin Desert and stopped in Kadesh. Miriam, Aaron, and Moses' sister died there and was buried. The Israelites were out of water again, and they complained to Moses. God told Moses to take his rod and call the congregation together before a rock. God told Moses to speak to the rock, and water would come out of it. Moses held up his hand but struck the rock twice with the rod rather than talking to it because he was mad at the people complaining. The water came out of the rock to water all the flocks and the people. God told Moses and Aaron they would not lead the people into the promised land because Moses struck the rock rather than speaking to it. God was also mad because Moses was angry at the people and had said, "Hear now, you rebels, must we fetch you water out of this rock?" This statement implies that he and Aaron would get the water from the rock rather than God. They called the place Meribah. Edom denies Israel passage. The Israelites moved on toward Edom, and Moses sent messengers to the king of Edom asking to pass through his land. The king refused and sent his army out to the border. The Israelites turned away and headed toward Mount Hor, the death of Aaron. God told Moses and Aaron that they were to go up Mount Hor, and Aaron was to pass his garments on to his son Eleazar. Aaron died on top of the mountain, and the people mourned for 30 days. Numbers 21, Arad Destroyed. When King Arad of the Canaanites heard that the Israelites had sent spies into his territory, he sent soldiers to fight against Israel and took some captives. Israel vowed to the Lord that if he helped them, they would take their cities, and they did destroy the cities of Arad. The bronze snake. When they left Mount Hor by way of the Red Sea, the people started to complain to Moses and God about the food and water. God sent serpents to invade the people, and many were bitten and died. The people came to Moses and asked him to pray for them and asked God to remove the snakes. God told Moses to make a serpent from bronze and place it on a pole. When the bitten people looked at the bronze serpent, they were healed. The journey to Moab, they moved on to Oboth, then to Zered, then on to the river Arnon, then to Beer, to Matana, to Nahaliel, to Bamoth, and on to the valley of Moab, where the top of Pisgah overlooks the wasteland. They sent messengers to Sihon, king of the Amorites, to ask to pass through their land. The king refused and came to battle with Israel. Israel defeated the Amorites and took over their cities. Then King Og of Bashan came to battle with Israel. God told Israel not to fear Og, so they defeated the armies and took Og's land. Numbers 22, Balak summons Balaam. The Israelites moved on to the plains of Moab near the Jordan River, near Jericho. Balak was king of the Moabites and was afraid of the vast number of the Israelites, so he sent messengers to Balaam, a diviner, and asked him to curse the Israelites. God told Balaam not to place a curse on them because they were blessed. Balak sent messengers again to tell Balaam that he would give him riches if he came and cursed the Israelites. God told Balaam to go to Balak, and he would tell him what to say. Balaam got on his ass to go to Balak, but God saw something bad in Balaam's heart. An angel of God stood in the way of the ass, and the ass veered off the road. Balaam could not see the angel, but the ass could. Balaam struck the ass with anger. Again, the ass crushed Balaam's foot against a wall, trying to get around the angel, and Balaam hit the ass again. Then they came to a very narrow passage, and the ass stopped and knelt on the ground because he could not go around the angel. Balaam hit the ass again, and God allowed the ass to speak. The ass asked Balaam why he was hitting him, and Balaam said if he had a sword, he would kill him. God then allowed Balaam to see the angel, and he knew he had sinned and repented. The angel told Balaam to go on to see Balak, but cautioned him not to say anything until he received God's words. When they met, Balak took Balaam to a high place so he could see the Israelites. Numbers 23, Balaam's first message. Balaam told Balak to build 7 altars and sacrifice 7 bulls and 7 lambs, and he would talk to God. God put a word in Balaam's mouth to go back and bless the Israelites rather than curse them. Balaam's second message. Balak took Balaam to another high place to show him the Israelite camps. Balaam told Balak to build 7 altars and sacrifice 7 bulls and 7 lambs. So Balaam met with God again, and God told him to go back and bless the Israelites. Balaam's third message. So Balak took Balaam up to the top of Peor overlooking the desert. Balak built 7 more altars and had 7 more sacrifices. Numbers 24. God's Spirit came upon Balaam, and he again blessed the Israelites and prophesied that they would defeat their enemies, including the Midianites, Moabites, Edomites, Amalekites, Kenites, and the people of Eber. After Balaam finished his message, he and Balak parted ways. Balak was terribly upset with Balaam because he had wanted Balaam to curse Israel, but he had blessed Israel 3 times. Balaam's 4th message. But Balaam went on to prophesy that Israel would destroy Moab, the people of Seir, Amalek, and the Canaanites. He also prophesied that ships would come from Cyprus, and they would subdue Asher and Aber. Balaam's 5th message. When Balaam saw Amalek, he said, "Amalek was first among the nations, but their end will be utter destruction." Balaam's 6th message. When he saw the Canaanites, he said, "Your dwelling place is secure, your nest is set in rock, yet you Canaanites will be destroyed when Asher takes you captive." Balaam's 7th message. "Alas, who can live when God does this? Ships will come from the shores of Cyprus. They will subdue Asher and Eber, but they too will come to ruin." After this, Balaam went back home. Numbers 25, Moab seduces Israel. Next, while the Israelites were camped on the Moabite and Amorite border, some were deceived by the Moabite women. They started to worship the Moabite god Baal. God told Moses to have all the chiefs of the Israelites who took part in the worship put to death and displayed in front of all the people. God also caused a plague to afflict the people. 24,000 Israelites died from this plague. Later, an Israelite man, Zimri, son of Salu, from the tribe of Simon, brought Cosbi, the daughter of the Midianite leader Zur, into the Israelite camp. One of the priests, Phinehas, son of Eleazar, went into their tent and killed both Cosbi and Zimri with a spear for disrespecting God. God lifted the plague because of the respect that Phinehas had shown him. God promised that the priesthood would continue through the descendants of Phinehas. God then told Moses to destroy the Midianites because they were an adulterous people. Numbers 26, the second census. 40 years after the first census, the 603,550 fighting men, over 20, had all died except Joshua and Caleb. So God asked Moses and Eleazar to take another census of fighting men over 20 years old. This chapter lists each of the 12 tribes of Israel, their leaders after 40 years, and the number of fighting men in each tribe. The tribe of the Levites was not counted because their 23,000 men would be serving God. The Levites would not get any land the Israelites take. However, the other tribes would cast lots for the land, and the amount of land given would be determined by the population of each tribe. The total number of fighting men in this new census was 601,730. Numbers 27, Zelophehad's daughters. Zelophehad of the tribe of Manasseh had no sons to inherit the land, so his daughters came to Moses and asked him if they could inherit their father's portion of land and inheritance. Moses approached God with this issue, and God agreed with the daughters. He set rules for future inheritance and how it should be distributed. God told Moses that he would not be allowed to go into the promised land because he had disobeyed when he was told to hold his rod in the air and speak to get water from the rock, and he struck the rock instead. Joshua to succeed Moses. God told Moses to select Joshua to take over the leadership and to lead the people into Canaan. Moses appointed Joshua the leader, bringing Joshua in front of all the people and Eleazar the priest. Eleazar will obtain decisions for Joshua through the Urim before God. No one is sure what the Urim is. However, some say it may be the stones in the priest's breastplate that were used in receiving revelation from God. God told Moses to go to the top of the mountain so he could see the land of Canaan before he died. Chapters 28 and 29 describe the offerings that are to be brought to the tabernacle throughout the year. There are daily, Sabbath, and monthly offerings, as well as special offerings for the various feasts and celebrations. This is a good time to discuss all the feasts that the Jews celebrate. The oldest celebration is the Passover, which is the yearly celebration of the firstborn sons that were saved when the Spirit passed over the Israelite homes, which was the last plague against Pharaoh. The Festival of Weeks, held 50 days after Passover, which is a commemoration of when God gave Moses the 10 Commandments on Mount Sinai. It is also called Shavuot in Hebrew. It is also a celebration of the end of the spring barley harvest and the beginning of the summer wheat harvest. This celebration also corresponds with the future celebration of Pentecost, which commemorates the day Jesus' disciples received the Holy Spirit, which was 50 days after his resurrection, Easter. So the Passover and Easter are celebrated around the same time in spring, but vary since the Passover is based on the Hebrew calendar and Easter is based on the Gregorian calendar. Since the Jews do not recognize Jesus as their Messiah, only Christians celebrate Easter. The lamb's blood of the Passover represented the salvation of the firstborn Israelites and their freedom from the bondage of Egypt. 1,500 years later, Jesus' blood represented the salvation of all men and their freedom from the bondage of sin. Subsequently, Jesus is called the Lamb of God. Since Jews are still looking for their Messiah, they do not celebrate Christmas, Easter, or Lent, which are Christian celebrations. Lent and Ash Wednesday are never mentioned in the Bible. It was started by the early Christian church around 325 AD as a 40-day long fast to prepare for Easter. It was established by the Council of Nicaea and later formalized by Pope Gregory I around 600 AD. The Festival of Trumpets is a call to celebrate the first day of the year, New Year's, also known today as Rosh Hashanah. The Jewish New Year is held on the first and second day of the Hebrew month of Tishri. 10 days after this is the Day of Atonement, or Yom Kippur. On this day, the priest would kill a goat, sprinkle its blood on the altar, and let another goat go into the wilderness, the scapegoat. So, in the Old Testament, the sacrifice goat was payment for having committed the sin, and the scapegoat symbolically took the sin away so it would not be remembered. In the New Testament, Jesus became the ultimate sacrifice and the ultimate scapegoat by paying for and taking away all sin, past, present, and future, thus eliminating the need for animal sacrifice. If we believe on him and repent, no sin is remembered. Numbers 30, Vows. Moses establishes the law regarding vows and the importance of keeping them. This chapter imparts the laws relating to vows or pledges made to God. A vow or pledge a man makes to God must be kept. The vows or pledges a woman makes are valid and must be kept unless the vow or pledge is not approved by her husband or her father. Numbers 31, Vengeance on the Midianites. God told Moses to go to war with the Midianites because they had caused the Israelites to sin and to worship Baal. Moses sent 1,000 men from each tribe, 12,000 in all, to destroy the Midianites. The Israelite warriors destroyed their castles and killed all the men. They killed all the kings of Midian and Balaam. They captured all the women and children and all the livestock and brought them back to the Israelite camp. Moses was upset that they had not killed the women who had caused the Israelite men to worship Baal. Moses told them to kill all the women who were not virgins and to kill all the male children. They were to wash themselves and stay outside the camp for 7 days, and they were to sanitize all the gold and jewelry by fire and then rinse them with water. The total spoils were 16,750 shekels of gold, 32,000 virgins, 72,000 cattle, 65,000 sheep, and 61,000 donkeys. Moses developed a plan for distributing spoils between the warriors, the Israelite people, and the tabernacle priests. Numbers 32. The Transjordan Tribes, the children of Gad, Reuben, and half of Manasseh's tribe came to Moses requesting that they inherit the land of Gilead because it was good land for their cattle. So, rather than go across the Jordan River into Canaan, they wanted to set up their camps and stay in the land of Gilead. Moses was distraught because they did not want to go into the promised land and would not be helping to overtake the Canaanites. Moses told them that the men would have to cross the Jordan and help the Israelites conquer Canaan, and then they could go back to Gilead, and that land would be their inheritance. Moses told Eleazar and Joshua to ensure all the men went to battle in Canaan. Moses gave the 3 tribes the land of Bashan and the land of the Amorites. So the 3 tribes overtook the land and set up stocks for their livestock and cities for their women and children. Numbers 33, Stages in Israel's Journey. God had asked Moses to journal all the campsites where the Israelites stopped during the Exodus from Egypt. This chapter lists these campsites from Passover to the camp at Mount Hor, where Aaron died at 123 years old in the 5th month of the 14th year since leaving Egypt. The chapter goes on to list all the campsites from Mount Hor to the plain of Moab near the Jordan River and the town of Jericho. Because the Israelites had continuously disobeyed God, their punishment was to wander in the wilderness until all who were older than 20 had died. While at the campsite in the plains of Moab near Jericho, God told Moses to tell the Israelites that they were to subdue all the inhabitants in the land of Canaan. They are to destroy all their molten images and high places. God warned that if they did not drive all the inhabitants out of Canaan, the remaining people would be a significant problem in the future. God knew that the Canaanites were people who had become very evil, and if any were allowed to stay, they would be a bad influence on the Israelites. The Israelites were to divide the land between the 9.5 tribes that would go into Canaan. Numbers 34, Boundaries of Canaan. This chapter describes the promised land borders that God gave the Israelites. God gave them less land than he had pledged to Abraham, we assume, due to their disobedience during the Exodus. The eastern border was the Sea of Galilee, the Jordan River, and the Dead Sea. The western border would be the Mediterranean Sea. The southern border would be the wilderness of Zin, and the northern border would be a line from the Mediterranean Sea to Mount Hor, on to Lebo-Hamath, to Zedad, to Ziphron, and end at Hazar Enan. Eleazar, Joshua, and a leader of each tribe were to assign the Israelites the inheritance of land. The names of the leaders are listed in verses 19 to 29. Numbers 35, Towns for the Levites. God told Moses to tell the Israelites that they were to give 48 cities with an area of suburbs to the tribe of the Levites, since the Levites did not inherit land, cities of refuge. 6 of these cities are to be cities of refuge for those who have accidentally killed someone. This refuge was to be used until the time the killer would stand before the congregation in judgment. 3 cities were to be on the Jordan side and 3 on the Canaan side. It would take more than one witness to convict murderers. If the murderer was judged to be innocent, the murderer was to remain in the refuge city until the high priest died. Then he could go back to his home, but if he left the refuge city before the high priest died, he could be killed. Murderers who were convicted by the congregation of judgment would be put to death. The methods of handling murderers are covered in this chapter. Numbers 36, Inheritance of Zelophehad's daughters. The sons of Manasseh came to Moses with concerns about Zelophehad's daughters. If they married a person of another tribe, the other tribe would inherit land owned by the Manasseh tribe. Moses agreed and set a law that the daughters of a tribe would have to marry a man within their tribe. Summary. The book of Numbers was written by Moses during the 40-year Exodus. The story starts with the Israelites camped at Mount Sinai, and a census God requested to determine how many fighting men would be able to go to war when they reached Canaan. The tabernacle, ark, and temple utensils were built there at Mount Sinai. God taught Moses and Aaron about the camp layout relative to the tabernacle and where the Levites and each of the 12 tribes would place their tents. God continues to teach Moses, Aaron, and the Levites how to keep the camp and tabernacle clean and how to handle the offerings that are brought to the altar and the rules and regulations concerning offerings. From Mount Sinai, the Israelites traveled toward Canaan, complaining all the way and turning against God, Moses, and Aaron. God showed his wrath against them when they sinned and showed his grace and forgiveness when they repented. Unfortunately, their sins kept them from the promised land. After 40 years of travel in the wilderness, only the young were allowed to cross the Jordan. Aaron had died at Mount Hor, and Moses was not allowed to go across the Jordan due to his past sins and getting water from a rock by hitting it rather than speaking to it. The Israelites endured plagues, snake infestations, and subduction of the Moabite women. God protected them against their enemies, and the Moabite king's diviner, whose 7 messages prophesied Israelite success over their enemies. Moses spent his last days preparing Joshua, Eleazar, and the young Israelites to assure their success in the Promised Land. We are now ready to move on to the book of Deuteronomy, where Moses recaps the Exodus story and instructs the young Israelites before they cross the Jordan. We have started uploading the videos covering each book of the Bible and plan to add a book every month. As of this writing, the books of Genesis through Ruth are on the channel, including a short 4-minute introduction to the Bible. Please don't forget to click on the like and subscribe buttons below the screen to help us witness to others. You can also leave a comment if you like. We answer all comments. If you would like to send this video to friends or family members, please use the share button below. Then click on the next video icon to continue the journey through the Bible. You can also click on the channel icon to see all the videos available. Thank you for watching this video. May God richly bless you and your family.